We'll now start talking about lines, and we'll start with the idea of the slope of a line. A lot of people know slope as rise over run. But what exactly is rise and run? The idea is that we're moving between 2 points. In order to do that, we're going to have to move some horizontal distance, so however far we actually move horizontally, that's known as the run. And then the corresponding vertical distance that we've moved is going to be the rise. And this is the idea of slope. The sign of slope kind of gives us an idea if we're moving uphill or downhill. And so now that we kind of have an idea of exactly what it is we're doing, we're essentially trying to measure the steepness of this line. So let's see how we can do it given 2 points. We have 2 points, A is x1, y1, and B is x2, y2, and we want to find the slope between them. We use m to denote slope, and we have y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. The top of this fraction, y2 minus y1, that's the change in y. It's the rise. And x2 minus x1 is the change in x, or the run. So this is just a more mathematical way of saying rise over run. There are essentially going to be 4 different slope types. The first is a positive slope, and positive slopes move up and to the right, like this one. We have negative slope, and negative slopes move down and to the right, like this line here. We have zero slope, and zero slope would be a horizontal line, like this one. And finally, we have an undefined slope, which would be a vertical line. So positive moves up and to the right, negative moves down and to the right, zero doesn't move up at all, and undefined doesn't move left or right. So let's look at examples of actually calculating these. Our first example, the points are -3, 2, and 4, -1. We're going to let the first point be x1, y1, and the second point be x2, y2. The formula for slope started with the numerator, the top of the fraction, saying y2 minus y1. So we have -1 minus 2. The bottom is x2 minus x1, so 4 minus -3. We can then start simplifying. So we'll start by getting rid of the double negative. We then add and subtract. And we get that the slope is -3 over 7. And if you were to have switched your points and let the first point be x2, y2 and the second point be x1, y1, you would have ended up with the same answer. The only slight difference is instead of -3 over 7, you would have gotten 3 over -7, but ultimately those are the same numbers. Let's do another example. Next, we'll find the slope between the points 1, -5 and 3, 0. Once again, I'm going to let the first point be x1, y1 and the second point be x2, y2. The formula for slope said y2 minus y1, so 0 minus -5, divided by x2 minus x1, so 3 minus 1. We can then start simplifying both the top and the bottom, and we get that the slope between these 2 points is 5 over 2. So our first example had a negative slope and the second was a positive slope. Next, I want to find the slope between the points 2, 5 and 7, 5. Once again, I'm going to pick the first 2 points to be x1, y1, the second point to be x2, y2. So the top of the fraction says y2 minus y1, in this case 5 minus 5. And the bottom x2 minus x1, 7 minus 2. We can then simplify, and when we do, we get the slope is 0 over 5. And just as a reminder, 0 divided by any number is just 0. So here we would have something with slope 0. And in general, this is going to happen anytime y2 is equal to y1. Let's do one more example. This time we have the points 3, 1 and 3, -2. For the slope, we start with y2 minus y1, so -2 minus 1, over x2 minus x1, 3 minus 3. We then start to simplify this, and we get -3 over 0, but we can't divide by 0. Division by 0 is undefined. So this is an example of something with an undefined slope, and in general, this is going to happen anytime x1 is equal to x2. If the first 2 coordinates are equal, Undefined slope, if the second two are equal, it will have a 0 slope.